One of the things that makes Halo really unique is its large and expansive sandbox that a player with creativity can utilize to the full extent, which in turn will allow them to perform better and over the long term win more games. So today we're going to be going over how to use every weapon in Halo Infinite, specifically focusing in ranked games, not BTB or quick play or anything like that. So we will be skipping a couple weapons that aren't actually in ranked. That said, we're also mostly going to be focusing on the utility weapons, though I will quickly talk about the main weapons, though I do feel most people kind of intuitively know what the role of those weapons are. But without further ado, let's jump right in. Alright, so first up we're going to talk about the battle rifle. I think everyone kind of knows how to use the battle rifle, but obviously this is going to be the weapon that you are going to primarily be using when playing ranked. It basically needs to become a weapon that you are very comfortable using because you are going to have to get a lot of kills with it. So if you don't know, the battle rifle is a 4-shot kill. 3 shots to the body and 1 shot to the head, or you can clean up any Spartan that has no shields with 1 headshot. Alternatively, if you do not finish them with a shot to the head, it will take 6 bursts to kill them. This is important to keep in mind because you don't always have to be going for headshots when you're in a one-on-one fight. If you're in a one-on-one and it's easier to get those first 3 shots into the body, I strongly recommend doing that, and then you can finish them off with a headshot. Likewise, obviously, if you're trying to clean up someone that has no shields, you need to be going for the head, so it's just something to keep in mind. The battle rifle, like I said, it's going to be mostly what you're using all the time, and so basically it's usable at any range, but it is best for mid to long range fights, and obviously zooming in helps when they're further away. One thing to also keep in mind is that in Halo Infinite, the battle rifle is a 2 burst and then 1 melee to finish someone off if they are right on top of you. However, one tip that I don't think a lot of people think about when using the battle rifle is you don't always want to go for the melee kill. If you are a shot up on someone, going in for the melee is going to allow them to trade you, or at the very least get a melee on you and do a lot of damage. So if you know you're up in a gunfight, sometimes it's better to kind of backpedal away and just clean them up with your BR shots instead of going into melee range. That's pretty much all I'm going to say about the battle rifle. It's pretty straightforward. You're going to be using it a ton. Make sure you feel comfortable with it. Next, we're going to talk about the power weapons in ranked, and that's going to be the sniper, the rocket launcher, and the sword. And these are all also very straightforward, so we'll get through them pretty quickly. The sniper is going to be a 1 shot to the head, 2 shots to the body. It has a 5 times and 10 times zoom. I mean, it's a sniper rifle. One thing that's different in Halo Infinite is that at further ranges, you will notice that the no-scopes have a little bit of inaccuracy, so you might not hit those crazy no-scopes cross-map all the time like you could in other games. Other than that though, the best way to use the sniper rifle is to try and get shots on people that aren't shooting at you yet. Once they start shooting at you, it will be harder to hit them as you're going to get de-scoped, but then again, you can always quick scope them or try and no-scope them when you need to. Also, another thing to keep in mind is that if they're close, 1 shot and 1 melee will kill people with the sniper rifle. And yeah, other than that, I mean, it's the sniper in Halo. It really hasn't changed much. Next, we'll move on to the rockets. Not much to say about the rockets. They're a 1-shot kill as long as you shoot near someone. They do have splash damage, so you can hit multiple people, and you can also hit objects next to people, behind people to kill them. The only real tip I have with the rocket launcher is you don't really want to be aiming right at the person you're trying to kill. Rather, you want to aim at an object next to them or the floor right below them so they die to that splash damage, because if you try and aim right at them, you are a lot more likely to miss. Next, we're going to move on to the sword. This one's really straightforward. It's the melee weapon. It has a lunge in ranked. We won't be talking about the gravity hammer because it's not in ranked, but it kind of fits the same role a little bit. But the sword's a 1-hit kill. Use it when you know people are close so you can get some really nice multi-kills. And yeah, that's really all there is to it. One thing you want to make sure you're not doing with the sword though is trying to use it too much. You don't want to be just sprinting around with the sword because people will be able to pick you off pretty easily if you're running straight at them trying to sword them. You want to try and use it on people that are already in range or that are coming around a corner, or that you kind of get the jump on from behind or from the side or something like that. And that kind of covers it for the main weapon and the power weapons in rank. Next, we're going to move on to what I want the focus of this video to be, and that is the utility weapons. These are the weapons that you're going to find around the map that spawn in those weapon lockers on the wall. Now, these utility weapons are not one-all be-all weapons like the battle rifle or the power weapon. You definitely don't want to always be using them, but a lot of these utility weapons have purposes and can allow you to get kills that you might not get if you were trying to just use the battle rifle. So it is really important to be comfortable with these utility weapons and know when to use different ones. Now, these don't spawn on every map. The different ranked maps have different weapons that spawn on them, but we're just going to go over kind of the broad role of all of these weapons, kind of how I like to use them and everything like that. So the first weapon is the Mangler. This is mostly a close range gun. It's kind of like a revolver. It's going to be a 3-shot kill anywhere you shoot them, whether it's the body or the head, or it's a 1-shot melee, which can be very effective when they're right on top of you. This is a weapon that I really only like to use close range or right out outside of close range, because beyond that, it can be pretty hard to hit those shots. But the Mangler is definitely something you do want to be picking up, because if someone's pushing you, you will kill them with the Mangler in a melee or a couple Mangler shots faster than if you try to 4-shot them with the BR. The next two weapons are kind of going to fall into the same role here, but just a little bit more effective, and that is the Bulldog, which is technically a 2-shot if the whole spread hits them, but in practicality it's more like a 3 or a 4-shot, or you always have the 1-shot and melee option. Again, the Bulldog is mostly used for closer range, but the Bulldog does have longer range than some of the previous Halo shotguns. You can go a little bit out of what you would have considered Halo shotgun range with the Bulldog. It also shoots pretty fast, so you can clean people up pretty quickly, and it can be very good for cleaning up multiple enemies that are all within a close vicinity, maybe in a strongholds game, or maybe breaking an oddball setup, or likewise it can be really good to hold off people that are pushing in through a doorway or something like that. The Bulldog is very useful, and you should be picking it up off the map. Next up is the Heat Wave. So the Heat Wave and the Bulldog are a little bit interchangeable in role, in my opinion, as they don't both exist on the same ranked maps. What I mean by that is some of the ranked maps have a Bulldog and some of them have a Heat Wave, and so they both kind of fill the role of a shotgun. However, the Heat Wave is very different. It has two different firing modes: vertical mode, which you can get a 2-shot kill, or horizontal mode, which is a 3-shot kill. Now you can always do 1-shot and melee, just like the Bulldog, and you can also ricochet some of these bullets off of the ground or off of a wall, and they will actually hit your enemies too. If you know you can hit your shots, or you know there's one enemy, using the vertical can be the way to go, as it does do more damage, but the horizontal shots are going to be a lot easier to hit, and also can hit multiple enemies on that line if there happen to be multiple in the room. Like I said, the bullets are going to be bouncing everywhere too, so even if you're not necessarily trying to hit someone else, you might get a ricochet shot to hit them while you're trying to clear someone else up. Just like the Bulldog, the Heat Wave is very useful in close range encounters, good for breaking holds, good for holding off people that are pushing through a doorway or something like that, and they really do fill kind of the same role, other than obviously the Heat Wave has that ricochet effect. Next up, we're going to move on to the Sentinel Beam, which is a weapon that can absolutely melt your enemies, especially their shields. This one's going to be good for close to mid range. It does go a bit further though than those shotguns we've previously been talking about. However, as they get further, it does become a little bit harder to hit, and eventually it kind of just falls off and stops doing damage. The Sentinel Beam is also really good combined with the melee, as you can kill someone extremely quickly. You can pick up the Sentinel Beam on streets, and it is definitely a very effective utility weapon that is worth picking up and learning how to use. Next up is the Assault Rifle, which again is going to be a mostly close range, but can kind of bleed a bit into the mid range. The Assault Rifle is going to be a 14-shot kill if you hit the head after their shields are popped, or it's 17 shots if you shoot them in the body. While the Assault Rifle in ranked necessarily isn't as strong as it is in something like Quick Play, it definitely still is usable, as you can outgun someone close with the Assault Rifle even if they're using the Battle Rifle, or you can combine it with that melee to clean someone up pretty quickly. Another thing that's nice about it obviously is you can kind of spray a bit more with it, as opposed to the Battle Rifle, which close range can get a little bit funky to try and hit all your shots with if you aren't as comfortable with the Battle Rifle. It's definitely something worth picking up off the wall, but not something you're going to primarily be using, other than the occasional player that you know is going to be right on top of you. Next up is the Shock Rifle, and you're going to find this one on Recharge. So the Shock Rifle is kind of like a pseudo sniper rifle, and it does these 3 little bursts when you shoot it out. If you're able to get that whole burst on an enemy in the head, you will kill them, or it's going to take 3 shots to the body. Practicing with the Shock Rifle and being able to hit those headshots will make it an extremely effective weapon, as you can obviously one-shot with it. It's very good mid to long range, but it's not something you really want to be running into engagements with, as hitting people with it no-scoped can be pretty difficult. Another important tip with the Shock Rifle, and actually the Disruptor later on too, is that you can chain the electric damage. So obviously it can chain from player to player, but it can also chain off of some of the objects in the game, like the weapon pads, or even the stronghold pad in the middle. You can actually shoot those, and even if you don't have line of sight on the enemy, it can actually chain to them, and you'll see the electricity kind of bounce off and hit them. It doesn't necessarily do a ton of damage with the Shock Rifle, a little bit more with the Disruptor, but this can be used for information or to put a little bit of damage on people that you can't necessarily see. Definitely something you want to keep in mind. Next up is the Stalker Rifle, and this is going to be another mid to long range gun. Now the Stalker Rifle is something you can pick up on the balcony on streets, and this is a weapon you definitely want to be aware of and also using. It absolutely melts your enemies. This is going to be a 3-shot kill, 2 body shots and 1 headshot, or 4 shots if they're all to the body. It has 2 scopes that you can use, so you can use this at very long ranges very effectively, though it does have a slower rate of fire. The Stalker rifle is an extremely strong utility weapon in ranked, and it's something you should definitely be picking up. Moving from here on, these are weapons I don't pick up as often, but I still want to talk about what their role is and kind of how you can use them if you want. So the first one's going to be the Needler, and this is basically only a gun you're going to use when someone's out in the open, as the super combine effect will easily net you kills if they're really out in the open. However, if they're dodging in and out of cover, you're not going to be able to get enough needles on them, and it's not going to give you that super combine effect. And without that effect, the Needler is pretty bad, as it doesn't clean people up that don't have shields or anything like that. The Needler is on multiple maps, and you can pick it up, though you really only want to be using it on people that are basically just out in the open to get a free kill on them. Even at that, it's still a little bit trolly, and I wouldn't recommend picking it up too much in ranked. Next up is the Plasma Pistol. So the Plasma Pistol in this game no longer EMPs vehicles, but obviously if we're talking ranked terms, that doesn't really matter because there are no vehicles in ranked. So obviously you can do the regular non-charged shots, which do a little bit of damage, or if you charge the shot up, you can blast an enemy Spartan, completely ripping their shields off, making it so you can switch to something like the battle rifle and clean them up with one burst. Now the plasma rifle's tracking in Halo Infinite isn't amazing, but the plasma rifle definitely still has a purpose, as you can hit people as long as they aren't strafing too hard. One thing that you can do with the plasma pistol that still makes it very useful, even if the tracking isn't as strong as previous Halos, is take kind of jiggle peeks with it, do a little peek out, shoot the plasma pistol shot. If it hits them, then you can peek back out and clean them up with the BR shot, or if it misses, then you're not really at a disadvantage because they weren't able to put many shots on you when you were kind of jiggling in and out. It's also another weapon similar to the Needler, where if you're able to get a charge shot on someone that isn't necessarily looking at you, or that you just got the jump on in general, you're going to easily clean up that kill, as opposed to if you try and just four shot them with the BR, they might be able to outplay you a bit, whereas if you lead with the plasma pistol shot, there isn't going to be as much room for them to do that. Next up is the Disruptor Pistol, and this is going to be one that I really don't recommend you pick up in ranked. Now in BTB and quick play, the Disruptor Pistol has the ability to EMP vehicles after enough shots, so it can be useful in those environments, but in ranked, using it just against enemy Spartans, it can be a 7-shot kill, though it's not super consistent. It also has a small damage over time effect with the electricity that can actually spread to other enemies nearby. One thing the Disruptor is pretty effective though at is getting rid of enemy shields, so you can use the Disruptor to take out someone's shields and then switch to a different weapon to clean them up. If you're gonna try and use the Disruptor in ranked, that's really all I would try and do it for. It is atrocious at cleaning up unshielded enemies, so you really don't want to be doing that unless you absolutely have to. Like we talked about earlier with the shock rifle, you can also chain the electric damage off of different objects like people, dead bodies, weapon pads, the recharge stronghold points, etc. So that's something you want to keep in mind. The Disruptor is actually a little bit more effective at it than the shock rifle, but yeah, I still don't know necessarily how much you want to use the Disruptor, but this is something that can make it a little bit worth picking up. Next up is the Pulse Carbine. This is another weapon that's pretty strong against shields. However, it's honestly probably one of the worst weapons in the game in terms of ranked, in my opinion. So the Pulse Carbine in a perfect world is a 2-burst kill if the second burst hits them in the head, or if you're not able to do that, is a 3-shot kill. However, the chances of all 3 of your bursts landing every single one of the projectiles is basically slim to none, because the projectiles move so slow that any moving enemy is probably going to dodge some of them. I really don't recommend using the Pulse Carbine at all, though if someone's really close, you can try and put a burst into them and then melee them to clean them up, but like I said, I don't even bother picking it up most of the time in ranked. The next one is another weapon that I just don't bother with in ranked, and that is the Ravager. It's on Behemoth, but again, not really a gun I'd recommend using. The regular fire is a burst fire that has an AoE effect that does minimal damage, or you can also charge it to shoot a bigger charge that will leave a fire effect that does a damage over time on the ground. Moving on from here, we're going to talk about the last 2 weapons. Now these are weapons that in ranked, you're not going to want to primarily be using, but they are weapons you do want to be picking up, especially as a secondary weapon, because obviously in ranked you only have the battle rifle. So the first one is going to be the Sidekick. This one's going to take 6 shots to pop their shields, and then 1 headshot to finish them off, or 9 shots if you went all to the body. The Sidekick actually has an extremely fast time to kill, however it's held back by the fact that it has a lot of bloom and isn't too effective outside of kind of close to medium range. Now the reason we talk about the Sidekick though isn't to use it as a primary weapon, as you should be using the battle rifle for that in ranked, but you can use the Sidekick to quickly clean someone up that has no shields, or to switch to instead of reloading wielding your battle rifle, as you can pull out the sidekick extremely fast. And lastly, we're going to be talking about the commando. The commando is going to be an 8-shot kill if the last shot is a headshot, or it's going to be 11 shots if all shots hit the body. Similar to the sidekick, the commando does suffer from bloom, making it harder to hit all those shots when they're a little bit further away, and the commando can also be a little bit awkward to use hip fired when they're right on top of you, as it can be difficult to track your enemy for all the shots to hit. I don't really recommend using the commando too much in ranked, though it can pop shields pretty effectively, but mostly you're going to want to be using it just as a secondary weapon to pull out in a pinch, or if you run out of ammo or something like that. And that's going to do it for all the weapons that you can use in ranked in Halo Infinite as of, November, until they add more guns most likely. I hope this video helped for people that are a little bit newer to ranked and don't really know what role all the different utility weapons fit and what weapons they should be picking up, what weapons they shouldn't be picking up, and everything like that. Let me know in the comments what other kind of tips and tricks videos you guys want to see. I know a lot of people have been commenting they kind of want to see map breakdowns and tutorials on the different maps, and I do hope to get around to that at some point, but other than that, let me know what else you think would be helpful. As always, if you guys enjoyed the video, you know what to do. Make sure you follow me over on Twitch. I stream Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, and you can also follow me over on Twitter and Instagram. And with that said, I'll see you all next time.